In early 2013, the Cairns Regional Council voted to remove a flying fox colony from the Cairns Council Library. The library is situated in the centre of town and is incredibly popular with tourists. It's an eco-tourist destination, and we have people coming here to visit the Great Barrier Reef or the Daintree Forest. But the colony or native wildlife such as this is a huge appeal to tourists travelling here who don't normally experience such things. What you're about to see and experience from what I've documented over the past year and a half is a series of continuous lies from councils and governments.
There are people in towns across Queensland living within only a few metres of the droppings and the smell and the general commotion of the bats, and those people are terrified now, and the government needs to look after these people.
Why are they afraid, and what is the now Premier Campbell Newman doing to alleviate this fear? I travelled north to Cape Tribulation to visit the Australian Tropical Research Foundation, known for scientific research and regeneration of the rainforest. It's also home of the Bat House.
I can explain very easily why the government is doing what's doing. Creating fear is good for politics. It's been used by governments all throughout the world, all throughout history. Education actually takes that away. You can't, if people know, then you can't create the fear, can you? And I think a lot of it is not even necessarily thought out. It's subliminal. It's within the culture that they operate.
The politicians.
Yeah. I mean, you're seeing the same thing in America with terrorism. I mean, it's amazing what you can do by putting the wind up people. You can get away with absolutely the most amazing things. Look at the National Security Agency. So if you can make somebody scared of something, you've got them. It's as simple as that.
Campbell Newman has called on the government to use smoke bombs and helicopters to move bat colonies away from people.
Experts are convinced the farm dog caught the virus from a quarantined horse and not a bat.
Needs to be a proper use of the tools available. Smoke bombs, noise and helicopters.
Really, Hendra is not a particular problem, well, it's not a problem at all with direct contact with bats. Dispersal and relocation are clearly not going to get rid of either Hendra or the Australian bat Lyssavirus.
Essentially, we don't know the means of transmission, and I mean, now there's a vaccine for Hendra, and there's no excuse anyway. You know, it's just that nobody wants to pay a little bit of extra money. It's much more fun to kill the bats.
An 8-year-old boy is critically ill in a Brisbane hospital after being diagnosed with the deadly Australian bat Lyssavirus. He came into contact with the bat late last year. It's only the third confirmed case of the virus in Australia.
This case has reignited calls for bat culls.
Clearly, the LNP and government in Queensland puts the lives of people, the welfare of bats over the lives of human beings.
But wildlife officers say bats are essential to our ecosystem.
They're what we call keystone species. In other words, they're the one, there's your arch, there's your keystone, knock the keystone out and the arch collapses. Okay? And flying foxes are critical to the long-term survival, genetic survival of our environment.
I have never seen personally a case of Lyssavirus infection.
So it's pretty rare?
It's pretty rare. The big question is where do people get bitten or scratched by bats, which is the risk factor for the transmission of the Australian bat Lyssavirus. And so most exposures, and we've looked at the figures, about 90% of exposure to bats that are risks for Australian bat Lyssavirus occur at points distant from the bat colony. So the bat colony itself is not a particular risk factor for bats and for scratches and bites.
But I'm just saying that we should issue permits to move them on, and we should ultimately put human health before ultimately the welfare of the bats.
Well, I really don't think it does prevent infection, given that most bat exposures occur at a site distant away from colonies, so it really doesn't matter where the colonies are. The bites and scratches occur in the places where the bats forage. So the bites and scratches occurring where the bats fly to. So you can't relocate that.
The most important issue to, of course, remember for people is please don't approach any bat that's unwell. Really don't touch or handle any bats.
What proportion of bats in the wild are affected by bat Lyssavirus? Probably less than 1%, but any one particular exposure, we can't exclude that possibility.
I began documenting in early 2013, and I sort of came to the question, why did we get to this situation? Why have we got or gone this far down the road? And it all turned on the death of one boy, a tragedy, a terrible tragedy that was totally preventable.
The boy was bitten or scratched while in the Whitsundays in December, but only began showing symptoms a few weeks ago.
I think the thing here is bats don't generally go around attacking people. They really don't. So if a bat attacks you, there's a chance that there's something wrong with it. I just think it's just common sense. If someone has attacked by a bat, just err on the side of caution. And that's probably the important thing that I would like to get out to every Australian, really. This is not a problem where you have to have a yearly vaccination. It's not a problem where you have to actually do anything other than be knowledgeable that if you come into contact with a bat, you have to do something.
We need to ensure that anyone who's bitten or scratched by a bat receives the immunoglobulin and the vaccination to offer the best protection against them getting Australian bat Lyssavirus. We do know that there is no one who's received that treatment who's come down with the bat Lyssavirus.
In early 2013, the Cairns Regional Council, under pressure from Queensland Government and Premier Campbell Newman, voted that this colony must be dispersed regardless of public opinion, tourist appeal or scientific recommendations. This man, Terry James, and many other politicians just like him, will jump on this tragedy and utilise it for their own personal political agenda in an action that will be one of the most callous acts I've ever witnessed. In the council chambers during the vote, there was a lot of opposition from independent councillors. Terry James had this for them. There was a lot of hype in there today about, you know, protecting the bats. But I'd say to those councillors who said that, say that to the parents of the boy who died from the Lyssavirus, and he was a Cairns boy. But he wasn't bitten or scratched here in Cairns. So I decided I would ask the parents of the boy who died exactly what they thought.
You get people to go, will come up to us because our son died and believe that we just want every bat eradicated. My standard thing I say to everyone is that that's not what we want. At the end of the day, we won't issue an opinion on that. But all we want is education, and bats do have a role to play in the environment, as do humans have a role to play in the environment. And we have a right to believe that they're not going to become sick from something. So everyone has to have more of a balanced approach. And don't get me wrong, just because we're going to do that does not mean that we haven't lost sight of the big picture, and the big picture is education, pure and simple.
November 2013, we travelled to the town of Charters Towers, where election promises were made. This little town will become the centre of the Flying Fox Dispersal debate. The Charters Towers Council are about to disperse a colony of what they claim is 80,000 flying foxes from a local park. One of the biggest agitators of this action is federal member for Kennedy, Bob Katter.
A fiery Bob Katter has declared war on the flying fox again.
We want the numbers reduced. That means, yes, they have to die.
In the case of Katter, it's simple demagogry. He's just being a demagogue, and doing it rather well. Yeah, he's got the knack. Yeah.
Okay.
So when it comes to Ebola and all the other things, oh no, give us a break. No.
So none of what he states on his website, Ebola, the leptospirosis...
Well, leptospirosis was primarily in rats. That's why it's called cane cutter's disease. I've never actually heard of anybody getting lepto from a bat, from flying fox.
There's no evidence that they play a role in the transmission of leptospirosis.
Listener Park in Charters Towers is home to approximately 4,000 black flying foxes that reside here year-round. The Mayor, Frank Beveridge, claims the blacks are not a problem.
There's not an issue per se. We coexist with the bats quite happily. There's a small population of black ones, and it hasn't been an issue at all, really. They're a novelty factor, if anything else, but once every 12 months, 18 months after extended dry period, they start moving into the park, and all of a sudden they're in plague proportions.
The plague he refers to is the arrival of the annual migration of these nomadic red flying foxes. When we arrived, the reds were far less than the claimed exaggerated 80,000 number. The number of reds present was clearly less than half that of the 4,000 strong resident black flying fox colony. Nobody from council could tell me who did a scientific count that came up with this 80,000 figure. That did not deter this ABC journalist from reporting a sensationalised inaccuracy without any consideration for her integrity.
Well, that's the sound of the 80,000 smelly, noisy and mostly unwelcome bats that have taken over this park.
Shock, horror, dreadful disease, going to die, headlines. How are you going to change? That's part of the culture. It bleeds, it leads is very much part of the news hound's culture.
Contrary to claims, the park does not smell and there is no mess. Community claims of the pool being unusable seem far-fetched, whilst the children's swimming carnival is underway and the trees do not overhang the pool.
Yeah. What's this? The size of your brain or something? What's this? What's this?
No.
Well, what is it?
I thought you've got bats in your yard now, though.
Well, you don't even know what's going on, mate. They come back every November. They stay for 2 or 3 weeks. They've already been and gone. There's none there. None.
Really? They've all gone?
All gone. So if there's any there tomorrow, they're there because you put them there.
Yeah, yeah. Quite possibly.
Most definitely.
What do you think the solution is?
Well, the solution is turn it over to the bats, because people who I can name chop down where their original roosts were, and that's why they're here.
We've had this conversation a few times, and we'll constantly have it in the future regardless of the outcome here, Mr. Brophy. So
the plan, it seems, is to not disturb the blacks, but remove the little reds. I don't think that's going to happen somehow.
You've got to get on the road, please.
I don't have to go on the road, I'm on the pavement, I'm legally within my rights here. This is not the park.
This is part of the park.
No, it's not, I'm on the park.
No,
what's your name? What's your name? Excuse me, what's your name?
It's currently a work site,
yep.
So the park's been closed. We've got cars driving around everywhere.
This is Mark Crawley, the CEO of Charters Towers Council, talking to the carers who are here not to protest, but to secure injured or fallen flying foxes. The council labelled them protesters, yet not one protest sign is in sight.
So how can we ascertain if a baby is on the ground and dropped and dead that we can stop the action if you're preventing us access to do so?
We'll stop the action ourselves.
How do we know that?
Because we have a condition on our permit which says...
How do we know that?
We need to be able to advise you.
The DMP is still not available, even though numerous people have applied for its disclosure under the Right of Information Act. As DMPs involve information that may come under privacy regulations, this is not a request the department can assist with at this time. How is a public act in a public place by a local government deemed privacy? It's indefensible. The reason this DMP is not made public is because it is legislated animal cruelty. The legislation that this DMP permit carries allows it to override all legislation whereby the RSPCA can act. And in fact, they state, people are operating under a government-approved damage mitigation permit. They are operating legally and we are powerless to stop the action.
Why are you starting actions on the blacks? You told me you're starting on the reds that have flight where the blacks do not.
The guys are having a look now. We're looking at the reds first.
The reds are here in these trees here.
And the blacks where the babies are on the other side.
The first and only colony targeted by the council was the maternal black colony. The colony contained dependent young that could not fly, and mothers are continually bombarded and forced to leave their babies. Here you can see council workers armed with paintball guns firing first at the tree, and when that fails, firing directly at the bats. All of this in front of this Queensland State EHP ranger, who is actually on the phone to my producer.
They're all sitting over there and they're all mothers themselves, or the people with their children. And what are they teaching their children? That being inhumane is okay.
Imagine the force of this water as it is focused onto flying foxes. The water hoses are of such force that they are pushing these men backwards. This helicopter is under 50 metres, above crowds of people, houses and businesses. This is a reckless endangerment of life and is probably 1,000 times more concern for death than all the flying foxes combined. This footage was forwarded to CASA, where an investigation of the breach of safety is presently underway. CASA assured me that what is witnessed in this footage is not something that CASA would ever permit.
These guys are reckless. They're over there with their paintball guns. You can see them. Just been told by Mark that they're not shooting the bats, but clearly they are, because we're witnessing that the bats have holes.
I can see them aiming.
Yeah, they're clearly aiming for the bats.
Where?
There it is, in the middle. It's got a hole the size of a 50-cent coin in it. I just got it on videotape. Poor thing. These bats are being shot straight through their wings, and we are witnessing it. Here it is, another one with a hole in its wing.
Oh, that's right, yeah, another one.
Turn around, mate, let us see the mark well.
Inside Channel 7 filming, get shot.
Well, I'd like to see the stain, mate.
Yeah, it's inside my back.
It'll stain your shirt, mate.
Yeah,
Just
it fell
stain your shirt.
on the ground and hit the ground. What have you got a paintball gun for?
Mate, because I'm registered to have it.
Do you have a rifle licence for that?
Yeah, yes I do, mate. I have a group licence.
Do the police know you're here shooting the bats with a paintball gun?
Not shooting the bats, mate.
We filmed you shooting the bats.
Oh, mate, I didn't see any marks on them. Oh, yeah, one of our shooters got a protester. Allegedly.
Initially, many years ago, they had roosts just outside of town here, out near the old pumping station. They had the roost there for, well, they were there for over 50 years. And people from around here chopped those roosts down. So these poor creatures aren't here by choice, they're here by necessity. And I've lived over the road from here since I was 5, you know, and I'm now 64, so I've been here a long time.
The little reds have been here for two weeks or?
Well, they came in droves. They're gone now. They came in for 2 to 3 weeks. Our yard is always chock-a-block with them. There was probably over 1,000 in our yard in the trees, which doesn't worry us. We know that they only stay 2 to 3 weeks. Every November, my wife and I have observed, and they've utilised this to the utmost. They've really utilised it. That's why they've done this.
Are you willing to identify the person who used the paint gun on a...
Sir, I've asked you once, now this is twice. If you do not leave, I will have the police remove you.
Once mainstream media left town, the police begin their harassment.
Is anyone the boss?
Even my 13-year-old son was targeted, intimidated, and required to give his information.
Been requested if you can stand on that footpath over there. A paintball gun, gloating about shooting me. You got a bruise? No, it hit my back with Channel 7, sorry. Oh, okay.
Clearly this officer is not interested in being told of an assault with a registered firearm.
This helicopter's under 100 feet over an urban area.
Oh, look, beats me, I can't tell distance. What's your name and your date of birth and address?
It's just not right. For what reason would you be doing that?
Thank you, Michelle.
We haven't done anything.
Have you got anyone else? Hello, man. Can I have your name? Sure.
I just rang Frank, the mayor, and asked him why we're being harassed when we haven't done anything. We have the right to be here where we are. We're not breaking the law. And he hung up on me.
What justification was there for such blatant harassment? Not content with 2 uniformed officers, these 2 detectives arrived. For those who had doubt, this detective makes their intent very clear.
To ensure everyone's safety.
Those choppers are dangerous. It's remote.
It's supposed to be kind of like noise is really upset.
When we left town, flying foxes were dispersed all over town in other parks and residential properties. A newspaper article printed a few weeks later stated, "We have our park back, but no one is using it." And then in February 2014, the Little Red Colony returns. Flying Fox Colony dispersals began happening throughout Queensland in the last 12 months. What has become very clear is it doesn't work. There are no successful relocations or dispersals of flying fox colonies anywhere. And in fact, Charters Towers love to claim that they were successful, but they were not successful. The flying foxes within 2 months are back there, and this is happening again. The dispersals are now happening again. We're seeing animal cruelty, and animals are being targeted with paintball guns.
No one wants to see these wonderful native animals harmed.